Why do you exist as a couple? What's the point of the two of you? What do you do for each other that nobody would ever want to do unless they got paid a lot of money? Right? Has to be based on a purpose. What purpose do you serve each other?
And so, can you use kids in that? Like, can I say we're together because we have kids, or to create like a healthy landing place for our kids or anything like that?
If that's your main purpose and that's the most important thing and that's the central organizing purpose or principle of your relationship, great. But don't come to me complaining that there's no romance or sex.
Yay! We're back. Amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Hello, my name is Andrea Miller. I'm the host of Open Relationships, Transforming Together. I'm delighted to be joined by Joanna Schroeder and Brian Atkins, my amazing team. And we have an incredible guest for you today, Stan Tatkin. And so rather than us blah, blah, blahing at the beginning, as we really often like to do, I think, Brian, you told me that Stan's in the waiting room. Can we just let it rip and get right into it? Let's do it.
Absolutely. Let's let him in.
All right, let's do it. Woo! All right, love. All right, thank you. Yeah, that's right. Love the snaps. Thanks, Stan, for the snaps. I am just overjoyed and totally thrilled to introduce the one and only Stan Tatkin, PsyD, MFT, co-founder of the PACT Institute. Stan is a teacher, clinician, researcher, and developer of the psychobiological approach to couples therapy, aka PACT. Whew, there's a lot here, everybody. Just get ready because he is amazing, beloved by colleagues and clients alike, including extra love by us here on Open Relationships and at Your Tango. Stan has written dozens of academic articles and is it now 7 best-selling books?
Up to 9.
It's up to 9 best-selling books. I knew I should have fact-checked that before. Translated into many, many languages. Too many to even record here. Stan's most recent book is called In Each Other's Care, a guide to the most common relationships, conflicts, and how to work through them. We'll come back to that. Stan and his wife, Tracy Boldeman Tatkin, PhD, who's also amazing, created the PACT Institute in 2010 to train mental health professionals to successfully integrate a psychobiological approach in their clinical practice. Through PACT, Stan has trained thousands of therapists around the world. The American Association of Marriage and Family Therapists honored Stan with the Educator of the Year Award. He is on the board of directors of Lifespan Learning Institute and serves as a founding member of Relationships First. And there is so much more, but I'm going to leave it there because we got a lot to talk about. Dan, thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, we're so thrilled to have the chance to speak with you and have you on our show. And I'm already going to say it. We want you to come back. Okay, so we're going to start with the fact that PACT has attracted many thousands of practitioners to be trained in your approach. I mean, that is enormous. And, coupled with 9 best-selling books, I mean, how have you attracted so many practitioners to learn in your methodology?
That's a good question. I ask myself that all the time. I think it's because of 2 things. One, we're big on our philosophy. We have an idea about how relationships should be based on social contract theory and justice and fairness, right? But then under the hood is a whole bunch of science, neuroscience, developmental neuroscience, infant brain development, attachment, autonomic nervous system regulation, systems, family systems, right? Trance work, Ericksonian trance work. And so we Gestalt and psychodramatic techniques. So we're doing so much, reading faces, learning how to discover deception, that I think because it's a derivative, right? We're taking from the very best, but it's all focused on secure functioning. That's the goal. Everything that we do is aimed in that direction.
Well, and I would just chime in, and we're going to get back to this in a few minutes. What I especially love as somebody who is in a wonderful but ultimately often challenging marriage is just that your methodology works for particularly challenging couples, right? I mean, that feels like for me, and I feel like for a lot of others that love and adore their spouse, but at times I always say it's fireworks of the best and worst kind. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I would, I presume that when somebody decides to go into practice or to take their practice of therapy and couples counseling to the next level, that the efficacy of what you're doing is a major attraction, right? Because they're there to help and heal.
I think the principles of secure functioning resonate with everybody because it's obvious and it's logical and everybody understands it. We learn it in kindergarten, how to cooperate and collaborate with others, how to work as a team, and the idea of interdependence, right? You and I have the same thing to gain and the same things to lose. So let's make a series of pacts together, not the same pact, but agreements that we're going to hold to because we can and because the world won't, right? And so it's basically a two-person psychological system way of thinking of we and us. I can't do anything without you wanting to do it as well. Otherwise, we'll fight. So it's a different orientation. You and I have to work together or we just don't work.
So wait, Stan, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but just really quickly, when you were describing what fed into it, did you say trance work or did I mishear that?
Trance work, yeah.
Like,
we do.
Can you elaborate on that? Like trances, like hypnotism, or what does that mean?
So couples are easy to put into a light trance. All we have to do is have them maintain eye contact and not talk. And then focus their attention, their visual field, on a particular area of the face or the face itself or the eyes. And what happens is that after about a few minutes, it turns on the spotlight focus of the ventral medial bundle. And so it's like Tony and Maria at the dance. Everything else fades away. And the only thing that exists is you and I. And so we can do that in a number of ways by adjusting also our speed, talking, and like a metronome. But really it is the couple that is easily induced. And so...
Could that work for any two people, like a parent and a child, or is it really specific when it comes to romantic partnerships?
It works no matter what. I've done this all over the world with strangers. And they become, when we do something like lover's pose, where one is holding the other in the lap and they're both looking into each other's eyes, hold that gaze for a while and then start to cast them as different characters. They buy into it, they suspend their disbelief, and they become fast friends for a long, long time because it's very intimate. So,
oh my God,
I gotta go, everybody. Sanjay, here I come. Hold me and put me in the pose, baby. Let's do it.
I mean, that is amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Those are so anything that's that is static in position is called a pose, which is just as challenging, if not more, for some people than movement, moving toward or away from you, moving to the side or in back of you. So that affects the brain as well, differently. And so we measure both. We measure how people do in movement, toward and away, and then how they do in a pose, holding it. And sometimes it's holding it in a kiss. Sometimes it's holding it with just eye contact. Sometimes it's holding it with physicality, arms, legs, and so on. So all of this to get to implicit material, things that show up somatically, that people like Easter eggs. We discover things that nobody would have discovered had you not done this, right? It's a stressor. But the one I'm talking about is delightful. The lover's pose is beautiful. It's art. It can be the lovers on a spring day, with a picnic basket, looking into each other's eyes, or it could be the PACT, holding your dead father, mother, sister, whatever. It can be father, child, mother, child. It can be anything. I can cast them anyway. I just have to stay true to the positions because the superior position has a certain feeling to it and the inferior. So as soon as we put people in a position, it alters their state. So right away, that helps the trance.
When do you choose to do the actual, is this like a therapy exercise, or is this like maintenance, or like who chooses to do these poses?
I do. I put them in.
Well, I mean, like, is this something that like all couples should just be doing, or is this something that like we've been having issues and we need to come together to connect better?
Well, I mean, it's doing it at home just because is better than a poke in the eye. Why not? People who have done it in my office, at least one partner will complain, I tried to do this with him or her during the week and they won't do it. And I really liked it, right? And so, but no, for me, it's diagnostic. It is to prove something or to lead somebody through something strategically without them knowing where I'm going. I can do inner child work. I can do all sorts of stuff in this position. First, getting them into the trance, getting them quiet, and then we observe every change, every shift, blood flow, pupil size, heart rate, changes in musculature in the face, neck. So we're able to really track very, very closely. And so is the partner that's watching. And so it's a lovely exercise, and it can be very cathartic if need be. But it stunningly, it's worked throughout the world. I've had people stay in the same positions and then recast them according to their history. And it's quite remarkable. There's something about the human mind that is the same. And the way that we grieve, the way that we, say goodbye or don't say goodbye, all of that is universal.
I mean, that's amazing. I was going to just go back actually a couple of steps to the site. You started recognizing there was an opportunity for the psychobiological approach, right?
Yeah.
And that's, I feel like what you just described in the lover's pose, like that's it, right? We are so much more physiological and biological. Like we think so much more is happening in our heads. And the truth is, it's like what is it called? The embodied nervous system or the embodied brain, right?
Yes.
So I find it really fascinating. It's really neat to see that you're a pioneer in the psychobiological approach. I was going to ask actually, what caused you to create PACT, given that there are a lot of other methodologies that are out there? Like, what caused you to start PACT?
So I've been trained in a variety of disciplines, right? Psychoanalytic for a long time, specializing in disorders of the self, otherwise known as personality disorders. So that Gestalt, psychodrama, I was trained in psychodrama and Gestalt, family systems, both structural and strategic. And so when I got into neuroscience through my then mentor, Alan Shore, I started to learn about infant brain development and autonomic nervous system regulation, and which happened to be, one of the reasons for the downfall of my first marriage. And so I was also motivated by deep depression and trying to figure out what happened and why did we always end up in the same place, in a disparate place where we were both felt like trapped animals. That's the autonomic nervous system. That's the inability to co-regulate as a team, distress states, right? And so when that happened, and Tracy and I, my wife, got together, our relationship was so secure and so low on any threat or interpersonal stress that for both of us, it released a lot of resources. And I just went through this period of integrating everything, including my music, because I was a musician. And I found that everything that I loved, I could throw into this pot and do, instead of being so restricted, because being trained psychoanalytically, right? There are things you cannot do because it doesn't go along with the approach. So I opened it up, and so it's a playground, and it continues to be a playground of taking what works and throwing away what doesn't, through trial and error and testing. So my research was digital frame analysis. I still use it, where I videotaped hundreds and hundreds of couples.
Wow.
Throughout coding their behaviors by looking frame by frame at faces and movements and voices, by going forward double speed. You can really get breathing rates when you go double speed, or backwards slow motion, double speed. And so by scrubbing video, that became my laboratory. And that's how I started to study what was actually happening. And as you said, things are happening way before people think. We make decisions subcortically before we're ever even conscious of it. Pick up a glass of water, you probably made that decision subcortically up to a minute before you even thought of it.
Yeah. There is so much below the surface, and I love one of your and you've got an amazing Instagram. So for anybody who is on Instagram, Dr. Stan Tatkin, DrStanTatkin, Dr. Stan Tatkin. I love the funhouse mirror reference that you made, where people are, it's almost like we're projecting. So if Sanjay is maybe a little bit irritated, it's almost like, depending on my state, I might see him as a threat, right?
Yeah.
But it's like that funhouse mirror, because he may not be projecting that, but that's what I'm receiving, right? So that's a problem.
So here's the formula. State drives memory, and memory drives state, right? Memory drives, I feel I'm in a state of mind, and now that triggers a memory that of other times I've been in that state of mind, through association, right? Or I'm remembering something and it changes my state, and they start to loop. So state influences memory, memory influences state, and state alters perception like a funhouse mirror. So if I am feeling threatened by one of you, it will alter the way you smell to me, the way you feel, touch, the way I see you, how I read your face, and how I read your voice. All of that is altered because I'm primed, right? Priming is a memory thing. I'm primed to look for those things. So I'm angry, and I'm more likely to notice Joanna's brows, coming together, and then, even though that's not truly anger, I could misconstrue it as anger, right?
So if just theoretically, you and I are in a conversation, and maybe I'm doing that, maybe I'm squinting down a little bit like that because maybe I have a headache, maybe my vision, or I'm thinking about something, and you're saying if you were already in a heightened state or seeing me as a threat, you're gonna, she's so mad at me, she's about to yell at me.
Right, because under stress, we use cheap memory, procedural memory, and which is pattern recognition. What Daniel Kahneman calls System 1, down and dirty. I see it, I shoot it, and so,
wow.
Right?
It's like when you're mad at your roommate or something, and like every little thing they do like now pisses you off or whatever. It's like you're just
so
projecting
magnified.
that onto them.
Yes, and add to that personal narratives. We all create our personal narratives, and those personal narratives are based on our history, our memory only. So I will start to interpret Andrea according to my history and my personal narrative, and I'll take the data I'm picking up and twist it into something that protects my interests only. right? And so
That's
what,
interesting.
so human.
That's the
human
funhouse mirror.
It's a funhouse mirror.
So we can't believe it.
How do you break out of that then? Like, how do you stop that? Because I know I snowball. I just get like, and then I'm so self-protective, you know?
It's a two-person approach. It's a team approach. I have to monitor you, Joanna. I'm responsible for your felt sense of safety and security at all times. And so I'm watching you. And if you start to tip or tilt into feeling unsafe, it's in my best interest to return you quickly to safety and regulate you and you me. It's like if we were on a tight wire, we'd have to look at each other, because anything either of us does could cause a problem with both of us, right? We could fall. And so we have to keep our eyes on each other and be in each other's care, literally, which we're not accustomed to doing anywhere, except in instances that is important, like in war or cop car partners or dance troupe or anything where people have to depend on each other and create something that's a vision that everybody holds and have the same purpose, right?
Okay. But Stan, what about, and I may or may not be asking for a friend, when you are in a marriage that one person tends to get dysregulated more quickly, right? And what you described, everybody agrees with. And it's like, who said it? Mike Tyson or somebody? Everybody's ready for a fight until you get punched in the face, right? Or whatever that quote is.
Right.
And so I'm wondering, when we're in the thick of it, and the other person, has a really tough time being able to do that for you. What do you do for those couples, right? Because we all agree that is the right thing to do. But when you're in the thick of it, and we're going to get back to fighting skillfully, because I do like your advice on that. But just in those moments where that other person is going off the rails, and you're kind of going off the rails, like I just feel like that is so common.
Yeah, you can feel that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So one thing, if I were seeing you and Joanna, and let's say you didn't know how to handle Joanna, because she becomes dysregulated, I would hold you responsible, Andrea, because
come on, Stan, that was not the answer I wanted. I want you to tell me how to make the other person, be more regulated. No, I'm just kidding. But go ahead, please.
You are her handler. She is your handler. She is your handler. You're supposed to be good at each other, at the animal you picked. So think animal. You have a horse or a dog. Do you want it to? Do you expect it to be okay with everything you do? No, you have to learn that animal. Otherwise, you get kicked in the face or you get bit. So you have to learn the animal. You have to be an expert. You have to know its sensitivities. You have to know where to approach or how to approach, and so on. Same thing with a partner.
So you're telling me that I'm joking, because it's actually really good news. It really is. And having gone through the highs and the lows plenty of times, ultimately, when I think back to, in those moments of despair, it's like, wait, I can do this better and I can do this differently. And I fundamentally have come to the conclusion many times, and even more as I get older, that I have much more power than I realize. And not in a manipulative sense, but in fact, you use the term emotionally intelligent, right? And in some of your work, it's like,
I made it up. I'm kidding.
I know. It was like trademark Stan Tatkin. But it does. I mean, that I feel like it's a big fancy way of saying, like, I can be much less emotionally reactive and much more skilled and we don't have to take the gloves off and beat the shit out of each other. And I have more power than I feel like I have more power than I realized. Sorry, Joanna, go ahead.
I just wonder, like, if you're a person who is like an adult child of an alcoholic, for instance, okay, there is a instinct, and I have it, to be ahead of everything that someone's about to do, to manage it, to protect myself, right? That insecure attachment sort of thing where becomes very codependent or whatever buzzword you want to use. How do you know the difference between me feeling responsible for my husband's dysregulation and then me, acting out that role of caretaker, anticipating all the problems, solve them all yourself?
Well, it's in what you just said. That's a one-person operation, right? I'm going to take care of it all by myself. This is a two-person.
Nailed it.
And so I have to do it. You have to do it, and we're going to do everything ahead of time based on agreement. So think of this in a free union where people are coming together as independents, right? Autonomous individuals, adults. It should be based on terms and conditions, right? We're the co-architects of this thing called a relationship, which doesn't exist except in our heads. And so we come up with ways we're going to protect ourselves from each other. And that requires planning. We have to think of what could go wrong or what did go wrong and put something in place for the next time by agreement and permission to enforce. Those are vital. Everything we do has to be done by previous agreement and permission to enforce. Two bosses, two generals, because we say so. Therefore, that respect, that formality has to exist. And therefore, I give you permission to govern me as you give me permission to govern you. And this is how we keep each other safe from our natures of being human primates, which is not great. Let's face it, under stress, under pressure, we can do really terrible things and revert to one person thinking of I, me, my, and you. So that's unfriendly. Again, if you were in the foxhole together, you could not afford to do this. You would have to know your partner's weaknesses. If your partner was freaking out, you got to put them back together again because you need another person. So it's just two of you in the foxhole, right? You got to do that. And so you don't say to them, hey, self-regulate. If they could, they would. They can't. So they
just
don't.
relax, right? Do you ever think it works to say just relax, Stan?
It's the worst.
It's the worst.
Think about it.
Your point's well taken.
If somebody hits my kryptonite and I become discombobulated, and Joanna's my partner, she's the only one with the medicine. I don't have it. Right? So she needs to know what to inject me with very quickly to snap me out of it so I can think again and I can start to collaborate again with her, right? But
I like the permission to enforce.
I love that too. I wrote that down.
That shows the mutuality, which I think, my instincts are not very mutual. They're very protective, armored, panicked. And like the permission to enforce is super, what do you like a handshake. We've already agreed to this.
Yes.
Yeah. And your point about mutuality.
All of this
collaborative.
All of this eventually eliminates fighting. We still get pissed off at each other. That's not a problem. But we don't fight anymore because we've actually been working on legislating as we go and coming up with ways that we both agree that this or that has to either stop or start, right? Depending on where we're placing the bar. And so you and I decide we're never going to do that. That's poison for us. That would destroy our union. So thou shalt not. And we give each other permission to enforce. So if you give me permission, let's say this is not a principle, it's a guardrail, which is basically stop it or do it, right? Stop it or do it. A guardrail, and you give me permission to say, you're doing that thing again, don't. You are obliged to cooperate immediately without pushback. So you can forget. It's a two-person process. You can forget because we're all basically automatic, reflexive, and dumb. And so we're going to do these things. But if you cue me, prompt me, I have, by agreement, I have to yield without complaint, without explanation. I just cooperate immediately.
I'm going to push back on this a little bit, only because I feel like in an ideal world, I can get there and we can get there. But I'm just thinking practically, all the, when you're angry and dysregulated, all that mutuality goes out the window, right? And I'm just wondering, mean, in your experience, what kind of time frame for couples that say, okay, we're going to be much more rigorous and intentional, right? Because that's what you're talking about, like some serious intention and some serious rigor. And I got to believe very few people do that, right? Until maybe they are trained by you or a PACT therapist.
Or unless they're in the context where they're forced to do it, right?
Well, exactly. But then I'm wondering, how long is there a time frame that you see? I mean, it reminds me of a practice. It's like if I wanted to go to and become a yogi, I don't just say I want to become a yogi. I go and I try to stand on my head many times before I'm able to stand on my head. And so I'm just wondering, how long does that process usually take for people to go? Because it's like you're having to rewire your brain, right? I mean, isn't that the whole point? That you have to like do that neuroplasticity thing.
The whole problem isn't I don't know how to do this. The whole problem is I'm not oriented there. I'm oriented in a different position. So couples are unique in that they get together for a variety of reasons, none of which are what unions normally do. In other words, we have a shared purpose in mind. We have a shared vision of where we're going, where we want to be. We've vetted, are we on the same page? Are we getting each other on board with the big ticket items? Are we doing due diligence to make sure that we could be a good team because we want the same things, or at least we've learned how to do that. Couples don't do it. You wouldn't start a business because you fell in love with someone, right? Yeah, maybe you would, but that wouldn't be why.
Listen, I would. That's right up my alley, actually.
Guilty.
That's why I've had so many businesses. Couples come together with their own mythologies, never making one themselves, with their own expectations, and with a set of entitlements based on family, because we become family in some way in our heads, even though we're not. We're strangers.
Right.
That's an error, right? We're strangers having to get to know each other throughout life, right? But when we think we're family can get away with anything. After all, we're blood. No, we're not. You unconditionally love you. No, that's not true. You're not a baby, right? No, this is conditional. And so we're not oriented towards thinking this way. Now, if you and I were an ice skating team and we wanted to win at the Olympics, we would learn all of the things I'm talking about, right? Like that 3-legged race. We either work together or we're toast. We don't do anything. We don't win. We don't survive. We don't make money.
But we know that. I mean, I guess my point is, it's like intellectually we know that, right? And it seems like it's a commitment to the process to actually do it. Because, I mean, nobody would disagree. I mean, nobody reasonable would disagree it's a good idea. It's just, I feel like you get into that hot seat and yes, you've made this agreement, but then it's like back to you're ready for a fight until you get punched in the face.
Yeah, that logical, it's that whole thing. And like, Stan, maybe you have an idea, like what, if someone's, if my husband and I are in your office and you see us go into, that like crocodile brain, like I'm doing, he's talking up, getting so mad. I can't even, what do you tell us to do?
I'm going to, it's called a container. I'll put you in a container with a task related.
Oh, please make sure there's some nice soft pillows in that container for me. Just kidding.
And then lock the door.
Yeah, exactly. I could use that little Jack Daniels or some tequila in there, but go ahead.
I don't
please.
think it's a shipping container. I don't think you're like.
And I was like, tiny houses? Could there be a view in my container?
The container is
for real.
The container is for the therapist. It's in my head only. But
okay.
but what I'm going to do is I'm going to have you. I'm going to give you a task with only a certain amount of time. Fix this, right? Fix this and don't take a long time. Now I'm putting pressure on you to see whether you can, under stress and under duress, whether the two of you can survive and thrive together by getting something done, by working on a problem, never each other, right? This is what we do. We work on each other. We try to solve each other.
My God. Can you just say it again? Can you just say it again?
The human condition is I'm unhappy. I don't know why. Oh yeah, I just remembered it's you, right? And so that's
And we want to change them, right? We want to change them, but does that ever work?
No,
it never works.
No. So as soon as I'm working on you, you're going to work on me, and now it's war. So so that doesn't get anything done. We have to work on a problem and work on a solution together, dispassionately, without pointing fingers at each other. Otherwise, we can't fix it.
Yeah, and that's back to the we, right? And just to me, I mean, the brilliance of what you do and what you emphasize in so much of gosh, from your books to social media to, you name it, this back to putting the relationship first.
Yes.
Making it about we. And that is, I mean, it's so obvious, and yet it can be so freaking hard to do, right? Because Joanna, to your point, so much of it is me, and coming from a family of alcoholism and addiction and so forth too. For me, it's like, oh my God, it's like self-preservation. Is job one, even if it means I alienate the person that I love, who I'm dedicated to, because I've had to protect myself for so long, and so it's a freaking lift to go
and it's
from,
like,
right?
when you have that instinct to build a treehouse and move into it, which is my instinct and my dream, I'll just be like,
I want to move into that treehouse with you, as long as
let's
we do on
go. We
pillows.
need our own though, because this that whole thing. You come from that system, and it's like, how do I get away from this right now? And it does feel so desperate. And Stan, it leads me on to this exercise that you were saying about the shared vision. That I think I saw it on Instagram. The shared vision, or the shared future. What's that about? When I heard about it, I was like, this would be so cool.
Why do you exist as a couple? What's the point of the two of you? What do you do for each other that nobody would ever want to do unless they got paid a lot of money? Right? What makes this relationship pay out for both of you? And you can't use love, because love is temporal. And it can't be relied upon. No emotion can be. It has to be based on a purpose. What purpose do you serve each other, right? And so,
can you use kids in that? Like, can I say we're together because we have kids, or to create like a healthy landing place for our kids, or anything like that?
If that's your main purpose, and that's the most important thing, and that is the central organizing purpose or principle of your relationship, great. But don't come to me complaining that there's no romance or sex.
Touche.
Because you're parents.
Touché.
We're going to make you the best parents you can be, because that's what you want to be.
But ultimately, I mean, I'm going to push back there a little bit too. It's like, and I totally get what you're saying. You got a little edge in your voice, and I picked up on it, because I feel like it's like, what do we need to show our children, right? And one of the most important things we show them is how to be courteous and respectful, and how to be we in our marriage, right? And so you didn't ask me, Joanna, but I'm gonna say, like, it shouldn't be about the kids. Like if you put your relationship first, then, or your marriage first, whether you're married or not, but that, to me, there is a huge trickle down effect to the kids. Am I right, Stan? Please tell me I'm right.
Yeah. So if you think of it this way, the reason we might choose to put our relationship, which is not each other, but includes each other, but our relationship, something greater than ourselves, our union, our alliance that we co-created, we put it first, because if we're not okay, nobody else will be. If we're in charge of everyone and everything, then we also have to take responsibility for making sure that we're good first, and then everybody else. So we think first about each other, and as insiders, and then we think about how we're going to handle everyone else. Our good time, our safety, security is ensured. We've predicted, planned for it. We prepare for it. That comes first. And this way, other people are actually happier. So trickle down.
Totally. Totally. I feel like that it is such a gift to do that work. And for me, I'm going to come back to what we've been talking about, that it's incumbent upon each of us. Like, so often I'm waiting for the other person to go first, right? And, kind of, I feel like the central premise of what you're saying is we have to be the keeper of and I feel like you can get into some, extreme territory where it's like, oh, now I'm responsible and he's behaving badly, but I'm responsible. And I realized that there are extremes where this model doesn't work. So we're going to stay kind of within
There are extremes does work.
Sorry?
We just didn't get into them. There are extremes.
Right.
It still does work.
Oh, okay. Well, I want to come back to that in a sec, but when I think about what a gift it is, but how hard it is, and it's so much easier to give up and it's so much easier to blame. And yet when you cross the Rubicon, in fact, I was just listening to a great podcast. You sent it to me, Joanna, with Brene Brown, just talking about they've been married for 25 years and how she says, literally hands down, it's the frickin' hardest thing. Marriage is the frickin' hardest thing. And so it is, right? But it's like, it's hard because we're overcoming so much of our own hurt and heartache and disappointment, and we just want to put it on the other person. But there's total futility in that. So it's like, do your own work and rise above, or suffer the consequences is how it feels to me. But Stan, I want to go back to what you were describing. You said, some of the hurt and heartache caused your first marriage to dissolve, and then you met the one and only amazing Tracy, and you said it was like the threat level and so forth was a lot lower. Will you talk a little bit about, was it always a lot easier with her? Did you guys have to beat the shit out of each other to get to the other side? I mean,
metaphorically.
Yeah, metaphorically. Thank you.
Metaphorically.
Thank you. Yes, we do not advocate for any violence at all, even verbal violence at all. But but we've all been there, right? And marital hatred, right? Like everybody relates to marital hatred. So did you have to go through any of that with her, or did the two of you kind of win the lottery finding each other?
Both. We won the lottery finding each other, and we went through our struggles. All human beings are a pain in the ass. There's no exception. Right?
Even you?
Oh, God.
Stan,
especially.
It can't be true. You're like the biggest teddy bear.
Thank you. Until I'm not.
Until you're not. And then you're a freaking pain in the neck.
I know. I'm an asshole along with everybody else. So
okay. Well, thanks for being honest. Open relationships. Ching, can we get from Brian? We want to keep it here real on this show. No, but seriously. But I'm joking, but I'm not joking. Like for each of us to be able to have sort of the maturity to say, God, it can be a pain in the neck.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it brings us to a place of, okay, so maybe we're able to relate to our partner a little bit differently rather than, always being a little more one up. Anyway, I'm sorry to digress, but I just think it's an important point.
So secure functioning, based on that you and I have parity, equality, shared power, shared authority. Everything we do has to be fair and square. Everything we do has to be good for both of us, or there will be trouble. If you boil it down to a formula, the formula is this: I have to simultaneously protect myself and you at the same time. I have to simultaneously think of your interests as I'm thinking of my interests. I have to simultaneously remember what I've done to cause you to not trust me or to worry about what I'm about to do, and not leave it up to you, because I remember what I've done. And I have to say that I know you think I'm going to do this like I did before. You have every reason to think that. Nothing in my hands, nothing up my sleeve, nothing behind my I promise I will not let you lose anything.
Oh, that phrase.
I will not let you lose. I love that.
Yes, I promise I will not let you lose. And gosh, the vulnerability required to be like, well, I remember when I used to stomp outside and whatever it was, and I'm going to not do that.
Right.
Because I promise I'm not going to let you lose. That's
that assurance. Yeah. That assurance and that way of playing this game is what builds trust every day. It actually does it. Because we're choosing to do the best thing. We decide what's the best thing we could do. What's the right thing we could do. It's devoid of whether we feel like it or not. It's based on a purpose. Would we want that? Would we want that outcome? Yes. Therefore, we have to do it even though it's likely going to be the hardest thing to do. That is placing the bar high. That is believing in something greater than ourselves. That is discipline. That's being a grown-up. And that takes some courage in a sense that if I do this, let's see how it plays out, because insecures believe they're going to be screwed because they have been. And so here we're working out a system where we don't make any move unless it passes muster for you and me, right? If you're unhappy with the decision, we stop there, because I will pay for it if I pull you into something you don't want to do. Therefore, if I really want you to do it, I'm going to bargain with you. I'm going to make it good for you. I'm going to see if I can, throw things in that you love, love, love. So you'll come with me because I want to be with you, even though you don't want to do this thing. That's not a transactional morality. That is actually a higher level, because we're operating as a team. We're operating in a way that keeps us together as two different people by finding ways to make it so that we're both happy before moving, before making a decision, before going to the party, before whatever we're going to do.
It's the only way to the promised land. What do they say? You go 2 by 2, and it's I realize that's mythology, but it's fact.
Three-legged.
Right? Three-legged race. We love the three-legged race. We can't drag the other person along. Otherwise, we are definitely going to, fall down and lose a race. Let me ask you about, you were just talking a little bit about, when you have to make a container.
Yeah.
Are there times when you just want to put your hand around a client's neck and just go, can you just do better? Can you just, grow up and get out of your own way? I mean, I just want you to keep it real. All the time.
Yeah, all the time.
Oh my gosh. Oh my God. Thank you.
But that includes me. See.
Okay. You're
gonna. We have to understand and not be naive that the human condition is such that we're both angels and devils. That if we're feeling good, I'm sure Hitler was nice to have lunch with when he was happy, but you don't want to be around him when he's not, or Jewish, and so we have to be aware that two different people are going to argue, fight, step on each other's toes, harm each other, even without realizing it or intending to do so. Therefore, we have to predict and plan and prepare for what could go wrong. And so to answer the question about a freak out with one of the partners, I would have you practice it. I would have your partner freak out as much as I can get them to do. And then I'll say to you, what are you going to do? How are you going to return this person to where they can think again without using a stick or a whip?
So good. I mean, it's so practical, and in so many ways, it's so obvious, and yet it's so hard, right? That's why you're the master.
It's a reminder that our brains are, we talk about muscle memory when you're learning a sport or cooking or anything. Our brains have something like muscle memory where, I envision like a dry riverbed almost, that the water so easily flows down. For me, that riverbed feels like me protecting myself, and that's number one. And so to do a different thing and to think about bringing somebody back in, that's going to take practice, just like learning to throw a curveball or something, right?
It's all about the practice. It is all practice.
But we're pointing in the same direction. We want to be awesome. We want the best relationship we could possibly get, the best deal on the planet. And we're constantly making it that as we move through time. So it's you and me, kid, against the world. We're the most important people in this room or any room or outside of any room. And that's how we play it. And this way, we're able to do things that we wouldn't be able to do alone.
So given all that, going back a little bit, when we were talking about shared vision, you said we can't use the word love. So given that, all that to me sounds like love. So what's with that? Why can't you found your vision together and your relationship on love?
Well, putting our relationship first has reasons for it, right? It has practical reasons, top-down reasons, right? And so that's not about love. Would that encourage love? Would that foster love? Yes. Behaviors are wag the tail of feeling. So not the other way around. The other way around, it's chaos, right? I'll do it if I feel it. I don't.
That makes sense.
We're off, right? And so we have to think purpose. What do we want? What do we want? What's ideal for us? Let's place the bar there. Let's vet it for what could possibly go wrong. Are there any bad downstream effects that we could encounter? And by the way, how do you want your version of this thing that we're agreeing to? And then we give each other permission to enforce, remind, prompt, right? So how are we going to get there? We make each other get there.
And also, it seems like love is so ephemeral and fleeting, and we tie it to romance or attraction. Like, it does seem like if you're basing something on love, it's like the moment that I get mad, I like forget about love.
Of course.
You know? So if that's the goal, it's like, well, it's not love anyway. Might as well give up.
Yeah.
It feels like the purpose is so grounding, right? When it's like we need that intellectual tether. I mean, that's what I find at times. It's like, oh, all my other capacities have escaped me. Let's, if one neuron can, kind of bring me back to, okay, this was the stated purpose. Let me go back there rather than just, throwing my hands up in the air and baby in the bathwater, right?
Yeah.
So because that it's like but I feel like it's back to that practice of learning how to overcome the desire to fight back and react. And Joanna, you do what I do, freaking retreat. And it is like terrible. Like, I feel so bad for, particularly with Sanjay, who's just a dear, right? The times that I have just left, like, talk about destroying safety. Like, that sucks, and yet it's like,
it's weird because it's like, I'm sort of half and half where I'm like, let's solve this, because then I'll have peace. And then it'll be like, oh, I'm out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that does create insecurity, and it's so hard to break that, which is why I think this PACT system is so fascinating. It's like practicing. It's like going to a workout for the relationship, right?
We need to go to your gym, Stan. We need the PACT gym to go, get trained.
A lot of it is legislating during sober moments, meaning when you're not on adrenal products, right? That you are dispassionately coming up with legislation, what we're going to do, what we're not going to do. And so you could say, this would be a typical collaborative way of putting it. Do we both want to feel safe and secure? Okay, find where you agree first, and where you're the same. Yes, we both do. Do we agree that either of us leaving the other as an expression of frustration or helplessness leads to both of us feeling insecure and unsafe in the relationship? You'll probably get a yes. Okay, let's put something in place where neither of us can do that. Neither of us can do that. We're not talking about, going in the other room and cooling down. We're talking about threatening the relationship, doing anything that threatens the relationship, which puts us both in an existential threat, right? That's very primitive, very primal. Losing my mother, I'm dying, I'm going to die, right? So there's a part of us that doesn't know the difference between a fight and the relationship is going to end. So we have to do something about that. Let's say that's off the table. It says, thou shalt not under any circumstances, and let's give each other permission to absolutely enforce that with the explicit pledge that when enforced, the other person must immediately cooperate, right? Must. And then we
I want a hologram of you in my house on demand, right? Where it's like when things are falling apart, I'm like, oh, come on, you the must. Stan, we need your hologram. Like an AI version of Stan to come in and, help enforce the legislation. But then it's back to, right? But then it's back to, okay, each of us, it's a delicate dance, right? Because then if it's like I'm screaming, hey, this is what you agreed to, right? Which I could see me doing.
Yep, me too.
You can scream unless you legislate against screaming for some reason.
Well, I would definitely legislate against screaming, then I'd go against my own legislation.
Well, it reminds me of, and I don't know who it was who first said it, who said, if it's hysterical, it's historical. Who's famous for saying that? Somebody.
That's a good one.
It hits me.
Like Freud.
Yeah, it hits me sometimes because, like you said, it's that feeling of dying. Sometimes it's like when I'm upset, it feels like being choked a little bit, like a physical sensation of panic and like, this is gonna be the end of me. And that phrase comes back to me, if it's hysterical, it's historical. And it's like, no, that's sort of a manifestation of me as
amazing.
a little kid, right? It doesn't belong right here with this person.
Right. It's a threat memory. And that's why these relationships are the hardest on the planet, as Brene said, because the adult romantic pair bond is only the thing it's most like is the earliest pair bonding with our originals. The memory goes back that far. You don't have those triggers with friends or other family members or business people, right? But you do with your primary attachment figure, your romantic primary, right? That's what I'm saying. It's very hard. It's a projective system. Naturally, it is, and so we're going to trigger each other's memories. We're all memory. That's basically what we are. We operate most of the time by memory. We're fully automatic. Very little of the time are we energy expending to use critical thinking, right? Because it's tiring. So we're lazy. We do the least amount necessary, which is why we find where we disagree and where we're different, because that's easy. That's the otherizing or the xenophobic nature.
Otherizing.
Otherizing. That which I don't know how to handle, I hate. Right? I don't like.
Right. It's a threat.
Yeah.
So here's one thing that's important. To be secure functioning, one has to be able to tolerate pain, or you can't.
Oh, come on, Stan. Really? I guess maybe that's the good news, that we can become a little more tolerant of pain.
You have to be able to tolerate pain. You have to be able to acknowledge losses and be able to grieve them.
Oh, so we have to kind of be mature, is what you're saying. We have to be a little emotionally mature.
You have to tolerate differences and separation, right?
Yep.
You have to tolerate shame and be humble and learn the art of falling on your sword for the relationship, right? I make a mistake, even though I, in my head, believe Joanna caused it. Joanna started this whole thing. Joanna and I wouldn't have yelled and called her names had she not done that. I'm going to go to Joanna. I'm going to fall on my sword, sweetheart. I should not have yelled at you. That's not okay. And I called you names that, I wouldn't like that if you did that to me. I am so very sorry. Full stop. Cannot anything
There's
else.
no but you shouldn't have.
Well, and that I was going to say, it's like a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason. Is it better to be right or happy? I mean, it's like, you can all that self-righteousness and but and Joanna, you, or it's like, or I can, and I don't know, it's kind of an annoying cliche, I guess, but it does strike me.
It's a vulnerability.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it feels like it's a vulnerability, but that can be turned into a freaking superpower when to your point, Stan, that when you're willing to feel the pain, when you're willing to be humbled, when you go, oh, that's how I cross the Rubicon. That's how I become, how I give myself the gift of having this amazing relationship. But I've got to look within and be willing to look into the abyss of shame. You said shame, right? Which nobody wants to look at. I'm willing to be accountable, which nobody wants to do, especially now, right? Like it's all hidden in plain sight. But like you said, it's hard. And this is, I guess, where I get really quite animated and excited. It's like, it's scary, scary, scary. And then you do it and you take that plunge and you go, holy smokes. Like, is this, like, it is the best thing ever. It's going to the promised land 2 by 2.
And your self-esteem goes up right away.
Yes.
Because you did the right thing, even though it was the hardest thing to do.
Exactly. But that's how we free ourselves, right? And that is just awesome. All right, Brian, we need all the sound effects. Woo! I mean,
you think of how prepared Brian's getting married soonish. He's not married currently.
Brian.
Can you imagine how prepared he is after having this conversation with Stan today? We have covered so many things that I feel like Andrea and I have both been with our husbands for, I'm at 19 years. Yeah, you're even longer.
Yep.
Things that could have helped so much before if we'd been
enlightened. But Brian's an enlightened young man.
He is. But like, these are such important skills, and I feel like people don't talk about them. Like, no one says to you before you get married, like, you need to learn how to take the L. and apologize.
Yeah.
And that could say it.
Take the
really?
apologize. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We do. Brian, if you don't have it, I'll send it to you.
What's that?
Read We Do.
Yes.
We do?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That would
I'm
be
writing
awesome.
this down.
Yeah, that would be. It's worth, Brian. It's worth going to LA or Malibu and crashing their dinner to get a signed copy of We Do from Stan.
Hey, I'd be happy to.
Come on out. Let's go to Wood Ranch. We eat some ribs.
We're
But
at Calabasas, but go ahead.
All
Oh,
right. Well,
man.
all you fancy people
Southern
out there,
Californians.
all
Yeah.
you fancy people out there, where it's beautiful and you're beautiful.
I keep thinking about that idea of like being prepared. And I think that's what I'm going to walk away from this interview with most deeply is if you can compare, if you be prepared and come to an agreement and, handshake on things and be collaborative before that self-protective instinct comes up. Like that's going to stick with me because I always want to resolve it and solve it when my brain is in that active protect mode. And it doesn't happen. And I have to remind myself, it's not going to happen right now.
It can't for neurological reasons. The areas of the brain that are high functioning and that are error correcting aren't operating because there's not enough oxygen and glucose to drive them. So you literally can't do it, right? You're going to be fully automatic and very primitive, Hulk smash, right? And that's not the time to sort things out. You sort things out by doing like a post. What is it called?
Postmortem.
You want the postmortem.
Mortem.
You work the problem because when doctors get together to do postmortem, they don't blame each other. They don't blame the nurses. They look at the problem. How do we do this next time so this patient doesn't die?
Yeah, the postmortem's a very good call.
And that's how you do it, right? But people don't want to predict, plan, and prepare for the obvious, right?
That's it. I mean, that to me, it's back to the rigor. It really, and I feel like there's just such a missed opportunity to be much more proactive.
Yes.
And like you say, in that planning and legislation and so forth. But something I want to get to is one of our favorite questions to ask our amazing guests is what in your line of work and around relationships and love and healing and wellness and so forth, or beyond potentially, where do you go against the grain?
I was thinking of a joke the whole time, so I probably was distracted. I was thinking, in my line of work, I raise iguanas, but then you ask me questions about that. Okay, so
we need a iguana graphic, please. Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
Where in my line of work do I go against the grain?
Or maybe even in your relationship.
Yeah.
Okay, so in my work, I'm not definitely not a typical therapist. And I like to say things as they are. And because of my sense of humor, because my lack of filter sometimes, I can say things that are pretty out there and pretty strong. And sometimes I get a lot of flack for that, understandably, for which I apologize. So I'm not a fan of therapy speak. I'm not a fan of hiding anything. I want people to trust me. So I say the truth and I say it plainly, even though somebody gets hurt.
Would that mean like you take sides sometimes?
No,
you don't take sides though.
I'd work for the relationship. I'll tell people I don't believe either of you. I don't believe anybody because I know how the mind works. So I have to see it to believe it. So, but no, I work for the relationship. It's a system reacting to itself. And so my view is there's no angels, no devils. Where there's one person, there's the other. There's a pain in the ass. There's Mr. and Mrs. Pain in the ass. So that's how it actually works. So no, I don't take sides. Some people can accuse me of that, but then I correct it and then I go after the other person.
Yeah.
All right. So I have one more question. I want to ask you, what do you love most about your newest book, In Each Other's Care?
Well, having never read it.
Oh my God. Big admission. We love it. I actually have a follow-up question. Now that you said that, I do have a follow-up question.
Pages are really concise. I'm sorry, what?
I mean, is there like a takeaway or like a breakthrough that you had that you're just like, oh, I just wish? And it's very practical. I've read it, and I feel like it's very pragmatic, in terms of just having identified a lot of situations that are common to a lot of people. But I just, as a fellow author, I feel like there are things about my book that I'm like, ooh, there's just this thing that I love. So I just, if in case there was, I wanted you to be able to share.
I think in having fun going through all the complaints, major complaints I hear in my clinic, and then going through the dialogue and examples of, non-collaborative speech and stuff, that I'm basically saying the same thing. It really doesn't matter, the subject. The subject never mattered. Money, time, mess, sex, kids, nothing. It's the manner in which we interact when one or both of us is under stress. Do we revert to a one-person think of me, my, I? If we do, that's the problem. That is a big problem. So it's not the subject. It's the stressor.
It's no me, my, I. It is always we.
Yes, we have a problem here, even though I do. Because if I have a problem...
Even though I want to say it's you, Stan, it's actually, it's we, right?
If we're truly interdependent in that three-legged race, if I have a problem, you do have a problem.
Yeah.
Right? If I'm unhappy, you better listen up, because you're not going to go anywhere. If you do something to me, it's coming right back to you. So there's nothing we could do to each other that isn't coming right back to us, including...
I think we all need that chip in our brain, right? Because it's so easy just to revert back to the me, my, I, right? Or you, like you said, like the blame, the shame, the pointing the finger. And it's just, we just need to practice and overcome that.
Practice, overcome, set the bar higher than the average human, which is on the ground, basically.
Right.
And learn to be better. This is all better, improving your life and improving yourself, being a better person, being able to discipline yourself to do what's best and right based on what you both agree. All of that is just going to be win-win. There's no way you can...
I'm going to summarize it by saying, I've been saying this, my kids are 10 and 13, so for 13 years, just about 5 times a day, you get what you give. Right? Yeah. Isn't that the ultimate, takeaway here? Right? If you're going to give the, gosh, I mean, in my case, walk away. Well, okay, that's what I'm going to get. Like, now I'm alone. And so it makes me think that's the chip we need implanted in our brains and in our hearts. We get what we give. Right? And if we can learn to give we into the, into the dyad, that's what we're going to get out of it versus me, my, I.
We're planning against our survival instinct, and that's no easy task, right? Because that's what we're typing here, survival instinct. As soon as I feel threatened, I go into survival mode.
Oh, that's why it's so hard. Hello?
Yeah.
Actually changes. Do you know, just even with a little bit amount of corticosteroids in your head, glucocorticoids, your brain is changed. Now you no longer are as giving. You do not care about the other person's position.
Oh,
you're more jealous of your stuff, and you're more concerned that you're going to be hurt. And so
let me ask you a really practical question. Is there a supplement? Is there a dark chocolate? Is there a something? No, like, seriously. So like when I'm starting to feel, because it is physiological, like you can feel your heart rate, you can feel your blood pressure rising, you feel that feeling that Joanna, you so beautifully articulated, is there something we can ingest? And now obviously we want to learn how to do it, like regulate, co-regulate, so our nervous system calms the fuck down. Oh, got the first F-bomb in. But in the absence of that, when the corticosteroid starts to, excrete or whatever the, right verb is there something that can disintermediate that?
Me, your partner.
Thank you.
I'm the therapist.
I told you I needed that hologram. I need the Stan Tatkin hologram at all times.
I'm dead serious about that. That's why it's a team sport. That's why it's a two. You cannot do anything very well by yourself. All of this
three-legged race.
All of this is interpersonal. And so we need another person. That's why I go to therapy, except save your money. You have a partner. You can only do these things with a team mind. Therefore, I have to bring you into the picture, Because when I'm going off the rails, I can't stop. You can stop me. You've learned me. You know how to do that. Because if I go off the rails and you go off the rails, we just crash and burn. Better
And
luck
no
next
amount
time.
of vitamin D under my tongue is going to help or whatever, you're right. I mean, and I love that answer, right? Because I am kind of looking for a hack, but I mean, your sincerity and gravity, it just hit me right in the chest. It's like, oh, like
That's-
it's just doing the work, right?
That's
And
amazing.
having
Let
that
me
wisdom.
ask you, based on that,
I thought
let
we
me
were
ask
doing
you.
brain hacks today, and we never did.
I
Go
know.
ahead.
Well, I
That's
have
gonna be the
one,
next
actually,
show.
since you said
Right.
that, I was going to ask you, I keep thinking about this idea of the fast fighting that you're saying, get in, resolve it, get out. So like what, if you're talking about a tool and I tell you, oh, I keep dragging these fights on, they go on, what can you tell me that I can do as a tool to make that fight done fast?
Have your partner and you face to face, eye to eye, a relatively close distance, so you can so your brain will automatically pick up the cues.
So not in the car.
Not in the car.
Yeah, not
Never to the side, because the amygdala fires more fervently when if someone's to the side or if you see a face at a glance. So you want to be dead on and keep everything short. You cannot, words are an aggravant, so you cannot talk much. You cannot go off the road. You cannot go on to a second topic. You stick to one topic only one topic, which is a challenge for the associative mind, because my state is reminding me of everything. And another thing, right? You can't do that. So one topic only, stick to that. We're going to work on it, not each other. I'm going to keep my talk quick, to the point, get off the stage and let you expend energy and talk. Otherwise, the more I leave you sitting, the higher your heart rate goes and the higher your blood pressure. Bad for me.
Oh, yeah.
We never refer to the past. We don't refer to last night, last week, last year. We will start to fight about memory. We're both wrong about memory because memory sucks. So don't do it. Don't even go there. Take what's in the past and place it in the future. What do we do if this should happen again? That's how you deal with it. And you do not describe the problem. If you start describing the problem, you're going to indict your partner. You will. And the other person will go, what do you mean by that? Right? And now you're off road. So stick to the plan, get in as quickly as you can, get to mutual relief for now, right? We've taken care of this. I promise we're going to continue this, but probably it's good, a solution for now. And then go
Well,
on
I
to-
promise I'm not going to let you lose, right, Stan? I mean,
I am
that
definitely-
what you said a little while ago.
I'm definitely going to talk in a way that doesn't give you the impression I'm not thinking about you. I'm not thinking about your fears or what I've done to add to that. And I'm not forgetting your interests. Has to be good for me, good for you, or we will not get along. Just won't.
So
happen.
to summarize, it's like to keep it from going on too long, because that's how we get that extreme sense of tension, that
Set
historical panic, right?
Timer.
We're not bringing up the past. We're not bringing up second subjects. We're not going to litigate who said what.
Nope.
And we're going to get off the stage quickly so the other person doesn't sit there stewing on what they wish they could say. We give them the opportunity to speak.
And the moment I start to see you slip into anything on your sweet face that looks like you're feeling unsafe or insecure, I'm on it stat. Because if I don't get on that, I don't have an audience, and I cannot, and this is really important, folks, I cannot influence you. As soon as you dip into unsafety, your face goes south, I've lost the ability to influence you, and therefore I've lost. It's a waste of my time. So I have to take care of you as I'm arguing with you. I have to take care of you and monitor you as we're trying to go back and forth and argue for the best solution.
It's actually a power
gets
move,
me.
right? I mean, it's deceptive, right? You said something really interesting. I can't influence you, right? And that's, ultimately you want to do it in the best way possible. Otherwise you're alone, right? So it's, I mean, again, it's back to, we all have more power than we give ourselves credit for, but our instinct is, screw this, screw you, I'm off. And that is so self-defeating. So let's not do that.
So we've learned that dark chocolate, sadly, is not a hack to solving these problems.
I mean,
I'm heartbroken.
Very good for your
I was
heart.
hoping
Okay.
But-
Okay. Hacks or something else.
So, like, what else? If I said, are there any hacks? Are there any shortcuts? Are there any? I mean, other than not letting
Oh,
the
he's
other person
going to tell
lose
you no,
knowledge?
Joanna. I'm just going to say it right now. There are no. I mean,
But what
sorry.
is there a tool? Is there an acronym? Is there something, right?
If you're very, very excited, you're upset and everything, I'm going to suggest that we move to another location. So it could be the floor, it could be the bed, it could be the sofa, just not where we are. A change of location automatically changes state for both of us.
Oh my gosh.
Automatically.
That's so cool.
Oh my gosh.
And then let's get into a love pose. Right?
Okay.
I mean,
Well,
that's
wait,
where we
love that.
started.
If you went into a lover's pose, you would have a hard time fighting because it doesn't fit, right? The posture, the positions don't fit. So change your location, you change the brain, change your seating position, change the brain, change your vantage point. I might get on the floor and lower myself so I am visually, optically not a threat to you. That is what mammals do, right? They show their underbelly, they get lower. So there are all sorts of things we can do to disconnect the threat system that is online. Because in this moment, you see me as the enemy. I have to do something unequivocally friendly and weird, surprising, silly, goofy. That
Love
will
so much.
immediately. So
I mean, I seriously love that so much. And
My-
so I love that I'm totally wrong when I was like, no hacks. Oh, yeah, there is a hack. It's a
Oh,
really.
I love that.
my, da-
Great.
my,
I feel like it would even work with kids.
my,
Yes.
my daughter who's here, she did something. I was furious with her, and I've refused this time. Tracy said, you're the adult, go in there and apologize. No, I'm not. No, not this time. Nope. And I was in the kitchen suffering as I was typing something, I don't know. And in Joanna walks with a towel over her head.
Oh, my God. So good.
I
She
immediately,
just upstaged you.
I immediately knew what it meant. I immediately knew what it meant. She's on the spectrum, and so she doesn't like to be skin to skin. It was a peace offering by putting, which we now call the hug towel, over her head, and I melted. We hugged,
Yeah.
both cried, and we both apologized for what we did. So
Oh,
that was
No.
a brilliant, genius move, and that's what we want. We want something that is visual, oral, but quick. Do not use a lot of words that amps people up because they don't have the resources to process language. We don't. So it has to be symbolic, has to be something that's so goofy that it just disconnects it.
Like you just get it. It's instant.
Yeah.
Well, that is an
And-
amazing, empowering note to end on because golly, we can, like you say, we can get a little goofy and get open and be vulnerable, and it's in our best interest, right? And just push through the fear of being, being wrong, right? But what we get in return, what you described with your daughter, it's like, but that's the ultimate gift. But we can only give it to ourselves.
And what a feeling of safety. It's such a lesson for me as a mom, too, to think about how to make them feel safe to be vulnerable by showing my vulnerability, too, right?
It is.
Yeah.
You have to do it to know the reward. If you don't do it, then it just seems like it's not worth it. But it is.
That's
Anything
it.
that's
Yeah, no,
hard-
it's a practice.
if it were easy, would it be worth anything? I'm serious. It's hard because it's worth something. It pushes us beyond our primitive nature. It pushes us beyond our 3-year-old that pops up, our pride and all
And
that.
out of our comfort zone, and it's like, and beyond this illusion of control that we have, right?
Yeah.
We all cling to kind of this illusion of control, and I feel like it's a whole bunch of these things. And what you said before about it being kind of almost antithetical to our survival, instinct. At the same time, it is totally sort of the only way to achieve survival in a form that we'd all want to survive, right?
You cannot have a war in your own foxhole. That's suicidal. That's Darwinian.
Mutually assured self-destruction, which we do not want. Right,
That's
we want to
right.
avoid that. All right, so Stan, you got to come back and actually do more brain hacks. We got into a couple.
lot of them.
We
Yeah.
got into a couple. And then maybe we can get a little, I know you're accomplished musician. We get a little music going. So we got a lot to do with you in the future, but thank you. This was amazing. I just want to tell all of our viewers and listeners, there is so much of Stan Tatkin online on Instagram. I described that a few minutes ago. The PACT Institute, PACT, the PACT Institute. You can find a ton of content for couples, as well as if you're a therapist and thinking about taking your practice to the next level. The PACT Institute is for you. Stan, any other places where you're directing people for more amazing content? Of course, Amazon and wherever you buy books.
Portugal. We're doing Porto next year. It's kept to a small group of, I think,
the Wired for Love couples gathering retreat.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's a 5-star retreat, so it's always very luxurious.
Portugal is the place to go these days. I'm hearing a lot of I've not been, so amazing.
I probably while you're there.
Oh yeah, we're not going to go there. Ooh, don't go into politics.
No,
we'll never stop.
I meant nothing of that. It was
I got you.
It could be useful.
Oh,
sometime.
Good.
You never
that's
know.
True.
Anyway, I love
no matter
you guys.
what, it's love you. You're the best, Stan. Thank you. All right, that wraps up our amazing session with Stan. Oh my God, love him. Love that man. Love him so much. Stan, we love you.
I feel like I'll never be able to take enough notes to even keep up with everything I learned in there.
I know there is, just so much wisdom and so much heart, right? And just in the honesty. Oh my God, how funny is it? I asked him what I thought was like a sly question. Like, do you ever, what did I say about essentially judging his clients through his patients? He's like, every one of them. I'm like, oh God.
Yeah.
So real. Like we love, keeping it real. Stan, we love that. So what were your, sorry, go ahead, Joanna.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, and the way he shared his own story about the moment when he didn't want to apologize. Like his wife was saying, go apologize.
Yeah, the story about his
not going to do it.
Daughter.
Yeah.
And just that intransigence and how we imprison ourselves with our sanctimony and hurt and heartache.
Mm-hmm.
And, we're our own captors. And that to me it's like, even in when there's all that hurt and heartache in our relationships, and we just want to make the other person wrong. Right. And yet what we do is imprison ourselves,
Yeah.
So he's got,
well, sometimes I think that people like Stan or any other successful people and successful couples, and of course, couples therapists, I think, well, they're good at relationships. Like they do it right. And when you hear that sometimes they acknowledge, oh, no, I did not do it right in that moment, it's a relief to me because sometimes I'm like, maybe I'm just wired wrong. Well, apparently we're all wired wrong, according to Stan,
no, totally.
right?
Totally. Well, it's even why, I mentioned Brene saying that it's the hardest thing. She's obviously a superstar, and how even she says it is still the hardest thing, right? Like in a way, I need that for myself because at times it's like, to your point, Joanna, like, am I just wired wrong? Am I just a, kind of a misanthrope or, right? And it's like, no, but to me, it's why relationships provide this unique, like really one of a kind forge for our own growth and freedom.
Yeah.
But it is not for the faint of heart. So it's either, okay, stay separate and in your sort of self-righteousness and indignation, or transform, right? Hello, transforming together. That's our show.
And that is the whole thing. That's why that transforming together is so key, because you don't really know those pain points until you're in it with somebody. And like that historical thing of like, oh, I thought I was over that, until that bond, that attachment is threatened by being sad or heartbroken or scared. And then it's like, oh, I guess I do have a thing I need to work on.
Yeah.
Well, and
go ahead.
There's that idea too that almost like seems counterproductive, like where like sometimes you don't want to fix the problem right away because like you're still in like lizard brain a moment. Like, because that's like Sarah, my fiance, and I, we have the issue where we're both problem solvers. So whenever someone like has an issue or something, we're like, okay, here's how we can go fix it. Here's how we can do this, that, and the other. But it's like, but he's right. When you're in that moment, you have caveman brain, you know, like when you're hurt, you need to like be in a calm, say a container, you know, and
container with a view.
Yeah. And in the idea that it's a marathon, not a sprint. You know what I mean? It's like we can't just like go throw the fix right here and now because we're fixers. It's like that's not how it works.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Joanna, did you have a favorite takeaway from him? I know there were so many to mine.
Just when he said, "I promise I'm not going to let you lose," it was like this feeling of what it would be like to hear that, and then to also know that in your partnership.
Okay.
And until I heard him say it that way, I didn't even realize that could be a goal.
Right.
Well, but, you know, and I'm going to even take it one step further. How about to say that, right? How about to be the person that can do that? Because that's his whole point, right? And we're always waiting for the other person. And yes, I want to feel that, but dang, talk about empowerment. Like, if I could give that when I do give that to Sanjay, right? And I overcome the little me to become, you know, kind of the best me. Like that's the power move in the best way. Thank you, Brian.
Yeah.
You know I love the sound effects.
What, Andrea, what was your favorite part?
Oh my gosh, so many. I actually loved I really want to try the lover's pose, right? I mean, back to this sort of how we are so biologically wired in ways that, like, I want to use my biology for my marriage is one. So like taking advantage of that. But the thing that he talked about in terms of the changing location or just totally disrupting, like when you're in that fight or flight and it's like hard and icky and scary, to say, I can put a towel over my head or I can do something goofy and just totally disrupt that. I mean, to me, that's also a power move. And it just, I mean, and I realize it doesn't change everything, but I feel like if you can overcome that moment and it's, okay, here, we're going to give ourselves a chance to reset. Like it feels like so deceptively easy, but powerful. So there's something, I mean, I loved your point about, I'm not going to let you lose. But when I think about just as a practical hack for when you're like it's hard and it's ugly and it hurts, to say, okay, what can I do? Maybe it's not admitting defeat with my words, because that can be really hard, but to put a towel over my head or, you know what I mean? Like to do something physical to disrupt it. And I loved, he said, not oral. I'm a talker, right?
Yes.
And Sanjay's a talker, right? So I really like using our biology, using our bodies versus our word. Like, don't use your words. Like we say that to our 5-year-olds, use your words. Don't use your words because you're just going to make it worse. Yeah. So I love that. I mean, so much in there, but I think that to me is an actionable, practical takeaway. That's one I'm going to deploy.
I've been thinking about when it's possible in those moments, just being like, let's take a walk. Yeah. Just go and take a walk. And that's, you have older children, Andrea, and we have a 5-year-old, so that's harder for us. But what if you could just say, like, if the moment worked, let's just take a walk. We're going to go around the block. And we live in the country. It's a long block. But it makes sense to me that as you're moving, you know, even just the adrenaline or those happy hormones that you get in your brain from a little raised heart rate in a good way, maybe that's part of it too. It's a different
love that. I love that. Yeah, I think that is a really practical way of saying, all right, we're going to disrupt our state. We're not going to leave each other. We're going to go outside together, you know, weather permitting or whatever. I think that's actually really cool.
Yeah. We had an article on Your Tango on the site that was about walking meditation. And that is what made me think of it, is the person was saying, like, sometimes just sitting still and being present is very hard. So if you can do the meditative awareness and letting the thoughts pass through your brain as you walk, that can help you find that
walking
quiet.
Is so, I mean, you know, and I feel like somebody hears walking meditation, they may go, okay, well, there's the meditation part of it that I don't understand. So I'm even going to I love that, Joanna, even just to dial back the meditation part. Like, there's so much amazing data just on walking, as opposed to running, as opposed to jumping, as opposed to a lot of in other forms of movement are great too, right? As a disruptor and just, sort of a way to get, re-regulated. But when I think about, I'm a big hiker. When I just think about, oh man, just the power of walking, again, it is like, I feel like it is a very kind of underappreciated, super quick, easy, cheap hack. So I love that.
Maybe that's like our big takeaway. We need to find our next guest to be somebody who's an expert in moving couples therapy.
It's like
somatic
all
like that.
Oh my gosh, there is so much more to mine. And thankfully, we're going to get Stan back on our amazing show. So let's wrap it up. Thanks, everybody, for listening and watching. We love hearing from you. So please write to us at openrelationships@yourtango.com. Tell us what you love. Tell us what you don't love. Ask any questions. Suggest guests. Please do follow us on iHeartMedia, iHeartRadio, wherever you listen or watch your podcasts. And I always have to ask you, Brian, did I forget anything? Follow, like us,
all good.
Comment.
Exactly. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to us. And there's also the playlists page on our YouTube channel, which you can find the Open Relationships Podcast extremely easily.
And please share us with your friends. Please share us with your friends. We want to transform together with you and your friends. Sorry, Joanna, one more thing.
I was going to say, can people leave us comments? Because I would love to read people's comments.
Yeah, on
YouTube.
Yeah,
of course.
YouTube. And write to us.
No, we're a great way to, if you have something you want to talk to your partner about, but you don't want to bring it up, you're like, oh, hey, this podcast had a really good topic. Like, you should listen to it. Yeah.
Yeah, we want to be in your homes, people, and in your hearts, not to sound cheesy and corny, but that's how I feel. Okay, thank you, Brian, Joanna. You guys are the best.
Hey, you guys.